Come on. All right. They got good speed. You can get the gearbox out of the bike without having to fully take everything apart. A lot of people take the oil tank out, but you don't have to do that. But I dropped this one shock bolt here. That allows me to get an Allen wrench under this one bolt, which is the one that has the tightest kind of fit. And I get an Allen wrench under there and it's starting to loosen this. I can loosen this nut with a wrench. The other ones I can get to with the ball end of the Allen. And that'll allow me to remove the whole transmission with the transmission plate and get it out of the bike to install the 6-speed gear set. And there's the Harley-Davidson 5-speed, soon-to-be Baker 6-speed overdrive gearbox. Now here's where you wish people who didn't know what they were doing would just stay away from working on Harley-Davidsons, because this inner bearing race rides inside the primary bearing to support the transmission main shaft, but it's only supposed to be pressed on so much. There's supposed to be a gap back behind it. And you can see they pressed it on too far. It should be out here about where the shiny mark is where it should be riding. They pressed it on too far, which means now I can't get the tool on it to pull it out. There's a special tool that goes in here to pull this race out. And I can't get the tool behind the bearing race because they pressed it on too far. So now I have to weld pieces to this race so I can pull it off with a standard puller. Then I can continue to get the transmission apart. Here's the specialty tool that I'm talking about. The gap that I'm telling you that should be between the race and the main drive gear will allow this tool to fit in there and will allow me to pull the bearing race off. But because they have that race on too far, I can't use this tool. So how I'm going to fix this is I have a nut on the end of this bolt. And I use the bolt just to hold it so I can weld a nut on. But I weld a nut on either side. And it shows you I'm going to hold the bolt, which allows me to place the nut where I want it. Just to come in and tack weld it on there. Without cooking my fingers. Then I come in with some filler rod and get a good bond between the nut and the race. And of course the welding heat will also help me loosen up the race on the shaft and allow it to come off a little easier. Needless to say, when you're installing a 6-speed gear set, you shouldn't have to weld, but when people don't know what they're doing, that's how you wind up. It always winds up that somebody's gotten here over the years, and, you know, almost 30 years of this motorcycle being on the streets, and somebody was going to screw something up somewhere, and it happened to be for me, so thank you. Just a little heads up here. This is 2 hours later from when I started to try and get this race off. I tried welding those little 1/4-inch nuts on, and they wouldn't hold, and then I welded these 3/8 nuts on, and they were breaking. I had to go to a bigger puller and just really cook the welds into the bearing race to get it to work. And finally, I'm at the point now where I'm about to get this race off, but it's been a 2-hour ordeal. So thank you to whoever didn't know what they were doing and pressed this race on too far. I'll never forget you. But there's my bearing race with the nuts welded to it. It's the only way I was able to get that thing off of there. That kind of makes me think, you know, if you didn't have my resources and access to a welder and a good puller and knowing how to do this, you'd never be able to get this thing apart. You'd be stuck if you tried to do this at home in your garage. I've done it so many times. This is probably the dozenth time over the years I've had to do this. Here's a special socket I made years ago. I welded 2 sockets together with a 1 7/8 so I could get these pulley nuts off these Evos, because I've done so many of them. This is going to be a left-hand thread again. It's going to go the opposite direction. I just pull this shifter shaft out of the gearbox and work these forks out. Now I can knock the whole trap door, which is this door right here with the bearings, and the whole gear set's going to come out for me. Knock the main drive gear out and start putting the bigger components in here, and I'll have a 6-speed overdrive. So watch this right, chum. Just knock that main shaft with a soft mallet, and the whole rig comes right out for you. Bye-bye 5-speed. That's the 5-speed set. I still got to knock the main drive gear out of here, out of this case, put a new bearing in it, and I'm good to go. Well, it's kind of dark back here where I got my press in the corner of my shop, but I'm going to go ahead and press this main drive gear out. There's the 5-speed main drive gear. In my right hand is the Harley-Davidson main drive gear. And then my left hand is the Baker 6-speed overdrive gear. It's a little bit bigger. There's the Baker overdrive main drive gear in the Harley-Davidson case. And there's the Harley-Davidson box. I got all the Baker parts laid out on a couple of shop rags here. There's the 6-speed gear set, the shift forks. The shift forks, this is really nice. They're labeled like 4C for 4 counter shaft, 3C 5F for 3rd gear counter shaft, 1 main shaft, 2 main shaft. And this is your main shaft here, the long one, and the counter shaft is a short shaft. So there's the shifter rack, all the hardware, everything you need. The shifter rod for the forks to slide on. Everything's here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get it all together. Okay, here goes. So this goes in. The main shaft goes in toward the rear of the gearbox. It slides right through the main drive gear. You gotta be gentle with this because you gotta line the counter shaft up with the counter shaft bearing. on the other side of the case, and all the gears have to be meshed. So there you go. Now my trapdoor is snugly up against the case. You see my gear sets rolling free. Okay, I got to install these 6 bolts into this trapdoor right now. So I'm going to add a little Loctite. Put that one in there. And that one in there. And I get these 4, 5, 16 bolts go in the bottom. Loctite everything. Always. Okay, once you got the trapdoor torqued down to the torque specs that are in the paperwork the Baker gives you, you want to check and make sure your shift fork is going to slide into the case easy. This one goes in nice. Then you also have this auxiliary shaft for the counter shaft shifting. Okay, and then you slide the one main fork in and get it on the shaft. Next, you want to install the 3rd counter shaft fork. And then the 2nd main shaft fork. I'm going to go right next to it. Then we'll go ahead and slide this rod all the way in. Okay, I'm going to install this last shift fork on this auxiliary shaft here. All right, I'm going to lightly seat this shaft with a drift and a small hammer. Then this set screw has to go back in the trapdoor to hold that shaft in place. I'm going to dump some red line gear oil just on top of the gears and those shafts, just so there's a little bit of lubrication in there. Time to install the shift drum. This is kind of tricky. You got to lift this shift finger up and get these shifted to align on these dowel pins, but you also have to get the pins on each shifter fork to go into the grooves in the shifter. You can't force it. It's got to be a natural fit. And when you do, all the gears should roll freely. If it's binding, you know something's wrong. You can see I'm a neutral now because I can hold the main drive gear and spin the main shaft. So that's how you know everything's in neutral. Then I just tighten down the bolts that hold the shifter drum to the case. Loctite, of course. Light torque on these. Right, then I can just shift into first gear. Shift into second gear. Shift into third gear. Fourth gear. Fifth gear. And there's sixth gear. Just basic test to make sure everything's working right before I put the lid back on it. Then I just drop the lid back on it. Really happy with how everything fit and went together with this. Just couldn't ask for a nicer product. And it's gonna make it so fun to ride. Can barely wait to ride it. There we go. All right, I got the gearbox in there loose. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get those bolts in and get it tightened down, and I can line it up with the primary and really start getting the spike back together. Remember I had to weld and pull the bearing race off with the puller because somebody pressed it on too far. Well, here's another race. I'm gonna go ahead and press it on. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it down a little bit with a little light oil on the inside I just wipe a little light oil on the inside of it to allow it to slip on the shaft a little easier. There's a specialty tool you have to use to install this race. You have to hold the end of the tool with a 3/8 wrench, and then with a 15/16 wrench, you drive that race onto the shaft. Transmission main shaft is left-hand thread. You can see now how I left a gap behind that race, and I can get this tool that I was showing you earlier on to pull it off properly. But because they had pressed that other one on, you couldn't get it off. But this is how it should be, with a little bit of space back behind there between the end of the main drive gear and the primary bearing race. Putting a little bit of anti-seize on these splines here on my main drive gear. Get that pulley on. And of course, Loctite on the nut. And that nut is left-hand thread. I'll use a little persuasion from the Ingersoll-Rand impact. Got the lock plate in place. Loctite on the lock plate screws. Here's my West Coast Choppers Hellbent exhaust pipes. My favorite exhaust of all time. I love them on the Bad Boy. The rear pipe is just bent a little bit on the tip there. That's gonna be a real easy fix for me. Very easy. This other one took a good hard crease and got ground down pretty good. I'm gonna try and save it, but it's pretty thin. I'm probably gonna have to cut this out and weld a new piece of metal in. But I'm gonna go ahead and fix this other one first, and then we'll work the second one and see where I go from here. I'm gonna use a Bailey planishing hammer with a hard round die on it, and just real quick, smooth out the bottom of this pipe. It won't take but a few seconds. All right, the rear pipe was a real easy fix. The front pipe, I'm gonna see how hard this one is. I got myself a crescent wrench. I'm just gonna use that crescent wrench to gently bend this tip of this pipe out. Now, I may have to patch this. I'm trying like the devil not to have to, but it looks like I'm probably gonna have to, but I'm gonna try this real hard with this planishing hammer to restore what I got here and make it work. So I got that hard crease, 90-degree crease out of it, and it's got a little bit of a chip out of the corner. I'm definitely gonna have to weld that, but let's see what I can do with this planishing hammer. It's getting there. It's still got a pretty hard lip to it, and I'm not sure if I can be able to get that lip out of it with the size of this die, but I'm gonna try like hell. I definitely have to weld this split area. You can see that. I'll hammer that back down and weld it, and I'll hammer it back over, but the rest of it's coming back into shape. I welded up those splits on the pipe. Got it shaped pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and finish it out here in the Bailey planishing hammer, and we'll get these things back on the bike. Starting to get that good feeling. I got an mountain. Did a little work to the tips of these pipes. We're gonna get the pipes back on the bike. I know I read in the comments, there's a few people that just didn't like these pipes on the bike, but trust me, my eye's good, my taste is good. These are great pipes. My other Bad Boy originally had a Cobra 2-in-1 pipe on it. Looked really good, sounded good, ran great. And I put the hell bents on it, and I got some grief back then too, but I knew I made the right move, and that's why I did it on this bike. That bike was, when I sold that bike was just the way I wanted it. So the hell bent pipes are the way to go. These are the ones for me. Period. Let me put some juice in this thing. Got some Redline 20W50. Good stuff, man. I take care of this engine. Take care of this Baker 6-speed. Oh no. I was only kidding about that. Looks like we're gonna have to push start this thing. I'm gonna try and use this hill to my advantage. Let's see how it goes. So I'm pushing the bike up a hill right now, which is a lot of work, but then I'm going to try and use that downward momentum. This is a big old stroker motor, so I got to get into third gear and dump that clutch and use the hill to drive me through the flywheels. So I'm pretty far up the hill now. I don't know if I'm far enough, but I'm going to keep going. As you can see, it's hot outside and I'm wearing a ton of gear. So
to push it up a little more and turn it around, and hopefully it'll bump start for me. So this is going to be your how to push start video right here. Use a hill if you got one. Then got them out in Florida. Here we go. I'm turning around, but I got to get off the road. There's a car coming. Go ahead. All right, so we put the key on. My lights are coming on. So I'm put the key on, and then running. Throw it in third gear and see if it'll fire. That's second gear right there. Here's my third gear. All right, let's give this the old try. I don't see any traffic. Come on. All right, I got good speed.